Poilievre calls out Mark Carney's sovereign health fund. Let's look at this.
Countries around the world, you will note, have sovereign wealth funds. You need to have wealth for those funds.
What?
Norway, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia run big budget surpluses, which they accumulate and then put into their sovereign wealth funds. Carney has no surplus and therefore no wealth to put in such a fund. He's talking about a sovereign debt fund. He wants to put another $25 billion on the national credit card.
This is such a stupid way of like saying, like, this is so stupid. This notion of like, oh, well, they have a surplus, so they're rich, and you're in debt, so you're poor. The United States is the largest country in debt, and they're the richest country in the world. This equivalence is not real. This is imaginary. They're like, oh, it's not wealth, it's debt. It's like, okay, it makes it just sound from a positive to a negative, but it's still just a wealth fund. It doesn't make sense to be like, oh, Canada, the UK, USA, they're in debt, so they can't have a wealth fund. That's not a thing.
To gamble on a liberal slush fund that will enrich liberal insiders at the expense of hardworking Canadians. How many corporate welfare agencies do the Trudeau-Carney Liberals need to create before they learn that it doesn't work? They have the Canada Infrastructure Fund. Remember the Infrastructure Bank? Remember that was going to invest in all these projects? What happened with that? There's a new Defence Industry Bank. There's the Canada Growth Fund, and countless other departmental agencies that Liberals have created and grown over the last decade to give us the worst investment and growth in the G7. And here we are. It's deja vu all over again.
Damn.
Borrowing yet another $25 billion out of the economy to subsidize projects that the government still cannot figure out how to approve only costs hardworking Canadians. Multinational corporations get the profit. Taxpayers will get the loss.
That's true.
Let's ask some basic questions.
But the thing is, I love Pierre. I don't actually love him, but I love him because he so badly wants to be on the side of the working class people, but everything he stands for is anti-working class. Like right here, he's like attacking corporations, but all of his fucking suggestions for how to fix shit is to give corporations more tax breaks.
Who will get the money?
It's
small and medium-sized businesses? Of course not. It will be the billionaires and bankers that will go to Mark Carney's elite summit coming up in September. They will again get rich, making everyone else poor. That guarantees small businesses and entrepreneurs get shut out, and politically powerful corporations get carve-outs, handouts, and bailouts.
See, so like Pierre's been hitting this liberal angle for a while. Like, we need small scale capitalism back. We need like mom and pop competition back. But the thing is, what we have today is late stage capitalism, multi-billionaire corporation oligarchs who control everything. Mom and pop can't fucking compete against them at all in the market anymore today, unless they're actually coming out with something innovative and game changing that is actually going to break the market structure or whatever, you know, like, unless that's happening, you're not competing with these multinational billionaire corporations in terms of their market share value. Like bringing back small business to Canada is it's a dream that's been dead for a long time, and the States, it's a dead dream just because that's how the market is now. We're very late stage markets, very late stage market, and that's what it looks like. You have very few monopolies who control mostly everything. You can't just claw it back. You can't just restart. You can't just push in more mom and pop businesses because they're just going to get outcompeted and die. And then the big billionaires are going to soak them up and keep accumulating more capital and profits off of their shitty business that failed, right? Like, they're going to be like, oh, they failed. Let's rent out their shit, buy all their shit, and whatever else. But I love this slush fund stuff.
So today,
let's see what this is.
A new pillar of our plan.
All right.
The Canada Strong Fund.
Okay.
Canada's first national sovereign wealth fund. This will be a Government of Canada fund, but more importantly, this will be a people's fund. It will be your fund. So here's how it works. A sovereign wealth fund is essentially a national savings and investment account. It's designed to grow wealth for future generations of Canadians. Many countries that are blessed with natural resources, like Norway, have sovereign wealth funds. Canada hasn't had one until now. The new Canada Strong Fund will give all Canadians a direct stake in building Canada strong. Now, to be clear, just like with the construction of the Canadian Pacific Railway 150 years ago, Canada's major projects will mostly be built by private companies. And just as in the 1870s, the federal government will support these projects through loans, grants, and other incentives. And we do this because these projects have wider benefits to our economies, benefits that exceed the private returns. I'll give an example. Expanding the port of Montreal at
Like, these are all good excuses, but at the end of the day, the main focus is those private returns. Like, I know he says it isn't, and it's about building Canada strong and all that good nationalism bullshit, but it's all about making these corporations more profits and more money. Just as he said, the government works hand in hand with the corporations and funds these corporations to do these work that needs to get done and stuff, and these corporations get a lot of handouts from the government. It's just how it is. And it's all about that. You can say it's for Canada strong, you can say it's for the future generation, but ultimately it is for our corporations to have more control over resources in our area, basically in our country.
Will unlock new markets for thousands of Canadian businesses and create hundreds of thousands of jobs for Canadian workers. So until now, while those wider benefits flowed to the Canadian economy, flowed to our country, the financial returns of the projects themselves flowed only to those who built and ran them. That changes today. When the CPR was built, the government
Canada Pacific Railway
granted a private monopoly to the company. Today, to create wealth for Canadians today and our kids tomorrow, the Canada Strong Fund will invest alongside the private sector in nation-building projects on a fully commercial basis. We will begin with an initial endowment of $25 billion. Over time, the fund will grow through asset recycling and reinvestment, creating even greater opportunities for future generations. We will also do something else that's new and important.
Okay.
For those Canadians who want to participate in an even more direct way, we will make it easy for individual Canadians to invest in the fund and therefore own a small piece of nation-building projects and share in their returns. The fund will be...
Honestly, it's not a bad idea. I mean, listen, I'm a socialist, and the fact is, when you're a socialist, it's hard to accept these proposals as something that is actually going to change anything, because at the end of the day, capitalism is the problem and that needs to change. But if you have money laying around, you might as well throw it in this investment. It's like a savings account. If the government's investing in it, it's going to grow. You might as well throw in some of your savings as well, because the thing is, it will grow. All right, so that's the only positive you could say. Obviously, it's more beneficial with people with money, middle class, not the lower classes at all. Higher classes, even the wealthiest class. But that's about it. That's what I give it is well, at least you could get some returns. But at the end of the day, it's not fixing anything about our economy.
Professionally managed and operate as an arm's-length independent Crown corporation. And we'll consult over the coming months on the specific aspects of the fund. But one thing is sure, it will be accessible to everyone, not just a few. Because the Canada Strong Fund is about solidarity amongst Canadians, no matter where they live. So whether a project is in Alberta, Quebec, or in the far north, high north, all Canadians will have a stake. because this is about ensuring that you and your children and your children's children benefit from the prosperity that we are creating today.
Right. So basically, it's just another way of a savings account. It's like if you have savings or any money to invest, you might as well throw in this fund as well to have a piece of our returns of these investments, which is fine. But again, not revolutionary, not life-changing, nothing crazy.
Pitching a new plan to bolster Canada's economy, creating a sovereign wealth fund. The fund, called
A wealth
the Canada
fund.
Strong Fund,
But little did Carney know that Canada has no wealth. They have debt. Owned liberal get cooked.
to help finance major national interest projects. And Carney says the projects will range from energy to critical minerals, agriculture, and infrastructure. And Canadians will be able to invest in the fund directly.
So whether the project is in Alberta, Quebec, or in the far north, high north, all Canadians will have a stake. Because this is about ensuring that you and your children and your children's children benefit from the prosperity that we are creating today.
So the price tag to kickstart this project is $25 billion. Little details available yet, but it's going to be invested over the next 3 years. And the Liberal Spring Economic Update tomorrow is expected to bring a lower than expected deficit, which could help pay for this. And that announcement sparked immediate backlash from the opposition.
Norway, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia run big budget surpluses, which they accumulate and then put in.
Right. This is like the right-wing talking point, is just Canada has debt, so it's not wealth, equals ponage liberal.
Their sovereign wealth funds. Carney has no surplus and therefore no wealth to put in such a fund. He's talking about a sovereign debt fund.
Stanford, he is the director of the Center for Future Work.
Stanford?
Rebecca Young, the vice president of economic policy at Scotiabank. Rebecca, it's good to have you in studio. Jim, always good to talk to you.
I think it's absolutely crazy for Pierre to come out and just be like, Canada's poor as fuck, though.
Good to see you both again. Rebecca,
which is just not true.
Let's start with you. Help me, the basics of this. There are a lot of details we don't yet have on the Sovereign Wealth Fund, but where does something like this fit in the Canadian investment picture?
Well, I'd first start with, we've heard a lot about the $1 trillion investment plan. So far, the government by and large has been talking about where are we going to put our capital. I think we're going to see a shift tomorrow more onto how are we going to use that capital. And so the Sovereign Wealth Fund would be an example where now they are talking in more detail about how are we going to use that public capital, public equity to invest in these Canadian projects and companies. So I think devils will be in the details, but I think it is looking at the mechanisms of how. And yes, there is a $25 billion sort of seed capital going into that. I think, again, devil in the detail, and sort of policy wonks like me are going to go into the back details and look. I don't think it's all going to show up on deficits. So we've already heard that we're going to see tighter deficits going forward, because if you think of it at a very basic level, they plan to buy assets with that $25 billion. So
right, so on a balance sheet, it could net out in some way. But does this become a vehicle?
Well, obviously,
like big institutional.
Everything on the balance sheet has to balance out. Okay, if you fucking have $25 billion in debt, you have to use that with $25 billion in equity or assets. So
Investors, pension funds to get involved in it. Like, how do we see this potentially operating? Because I initially thought like this could be the way they help finance that pipeline they want to get built.
Well, yes and no. So keep in mind, big institutional investors are already investing in this type of stuff.
Right.
Well,
this is
of
an
course.
angle for the government to invest. So government to invest for Canadians' future. And it's got two components. I think Sovereign Wealth Fund in part is about saving for future generations. Now that aspect we have to see over time, because they have to buy first that equity stake. Then we have to see that equity generating revenues to be
And also the thing is that when Carney kind of set himself up for failure here, because the fund, like, it'll take a while for it to obviously get set up and have returns and whatever. But once you spend that money on like wherever, Alberta, Quebec, New Brunswick, whatever it's going to, like someone's going to be upset about it. Like Alberta's going to be upset if they don't get some piece of that, Quebec, BC, like everyone's, as soon as you go, oh, we're going to put this up north, or wherever it is, everyone's just going to be pissed off. I'm not getting my money back from this fund. Fuck you.
Be invested so that, you know, our kids and our kids' kids have this big wealth fund that's accumulated capital. But there's another interesting angle that they're trying to introduce that they mentioned today, which is this retail sleeve, or this way for an average Canadian to invest alongside. But the idea, unlike a sort of a savings bond entity, is that there, in theory, should be upside. So with equity investment, with these sort of high risk, high return, there should be more upside over time for retail investors, but they don't have the sophistication of institutional investors.
Right. So Jim Stanford, on this, help me understand this.
They don't have the sophistication. No, they don't have the fucking money, dumbass. Some people have the sophistication and are just broke. These people can invest in the fund and know how funds operate. I'm a finance student. I know how this shit works. I ain't got no money to fucking pile in. To be a fucking institutional investor. You understand how fucking powerful institutional investors are compared to your average fucking Joe Schmo random walk fucking shareholder? Like, geez.
What is the value proposition for someone like me to invest in a Crown Corporation run sovereign wealth fund if I'm looking to, you know, have a better retirement, rather than like go into S&P 500 index funds or something that is pure private sector and pure capitalism?
Well,
it's pure capitalism, because pure capitalism equals better returns. That's pure capitalism. This is semi-capitalism, where the government does capitalism instead of a private individual doing capitalism. So it's bad.
I think
don't know.
Individual investment thing is more of a gimmick, frankly, for public relations purposes. It will not be the essence of the sovereign wealth fund, nor should it be.
Obviously.
You know, if it makes people feel good.
Yeah, so many Twitter idiots are going to get caught up on that. Like, they're begging for people on YouTube to donate their money. It's like, no, like, you can just also invest in the fucking fund. They're not, like, begging for funding.
That they're investing as part of an effort to build Canada's economy, fine. But the real action is going to be from the direct public equity and capital that gets put in, and then other partner investments that come in as well. The gold standard for a sovereign wealth fund is not just to, you know, have money to invest. It's to use it as a tool to transform and diversify the economy. That's what they've tried to do in Norway. That's what they've done in Singapore. The idea is use public capital as a lever to help develop industries, diversify the economy, build high-tech capacity, rather than just carrying on, you know, with the day-to-day affairs, particularly for a resource-dependent economy like Norway or like Canada. So I think the ultimate goal of this should not be to just help a private project get going. You mentioned the pipeline that can't stand on its own 2 feet. The goal of this should be precisely to help diversify Canada's economy and protect the high-value industries we've got, particularly given the trouble we're having with Donald Trump.
Okay, Jim, first of all, I'm a little bit hurt that you don't think the success and failure of this depends on my investment. But what problem do you think this is solving in the economy right now? Like, if you're going to create this, it has to be a solution to something or filling a gap that's there. Where does this fit in based on?
I mean, didn't he just tell you? What I mean, it does matter on what they spend it on, because yeah, if you're just gonna go, oh, we're just gonna give it to private corporations to build a shitty pipeline or whatever for their own profit, then you're not gonna see that really back in your community. But if they spend it on infrastructure, railways, roads, education, hospitals, all that shit for all across Canada, then that's great. But that's also a lot of money, and doing that through the shitty profit motive structure, which is what we do, it's going to take forever. And it's not like China, where they can just get a railway going in like 10 years and it's like the best railway system in the world. We have to do this slow moving development bullshit where we have to go through all these private contractors.
On the little we know as of right now.
Yeah, the problem is
we need
our
pure
economy is
capitalism.
fundamentally too dependent on 2 things. Number 1, selling stuff to America. Number 2, digging stuff out of the ground and selling it abroad, period. We're very resource dependent. And, you know, there are certain jobs and benefits that come from extracting non-renewable resources, but to become a...
But that's like literally every country, though. That's like literally every country. Like the States, like every rich nation is resource rich.
fully fledged industrial economy, you need to do much more than that. You need to add value to your resources. And a sovereign wealth fund, because you're using a public interest criteria to help guide those investments, you can develop industries that might not develop otherwise. That's exactly what they've done in Singapore. The Temasek Fund in Singapore has been a tool of active industrial policy to help that country develop high-tech industry and become a leader in so many other industries that they weren't before. So in that regard, combined with the other policy levers that the government has, it could play a very important role. But we will have to see. They've got these consultations coming up, and if it just becomes a way to channel public money into more private projects that couldn't stand on their own 2 feet and flip assets rather than build public wealth over time, then it will be a boondoggle.
Rebecca, what industries would you?
Well, that's what's going to happen anyway, because as I just said, we always go through the market system, which is the same reason why housing sucks. It's like, oh yeah, we're putting this big investment into housing, but it's like, okay, well, these developers, and it's going to take time and it costs, like going through this stupid market system, it takes forever to actually build public, like, things that the public needs, because it's not profitable. Building a park isn't profitable unless the government's going to give this corporation a lot of money to fucking build this shit.
Because right now the focus is on big projects, natural resources, get things moving, jolt the GDP, get to new markets. Where do you think something like this could focus?
Like, you also need things that aren't profitable, like trains, public transit, public healthcare, public education, lots of things that are low profit but very high value. Medicine. Like, it shouldn't just be like, oh, well, we need to put this into industrializing. Like, we are an industrialized country. It's stupid to be like, we need to industrialize.
Prescription is the right one.
I would really look at maybe 2 directions going forward. So one, I do think that we're realizing there is a strategic value to some projects that may not make commercial sense in last year's terms. But if we look at some critical minerals and rare earths on commercial terms alone, they may not necessarily look viable. But what we saw in the U.S. is that U.S. government has now taken stake in some of these companies, an equity stake. So I think that that's an area where we might see, and it is higher risk. So the other area that I'll be looking for in Prime Minister Carney threw out this term asset recycling, which probably went over the heads of many people, but this idea of taking mature assets and using that as a source of, proceeds to capitalize further this new vehicle. So I think that's interesting because Canada stands, way above and beyond other countries in terms of how much infrastructure sits on government balance sheets. So I think there is a way of taking some of that mature infrastructure and bringing private capital in there on commercial terms while using public capital in the riskier stuff to de-risk it.
So on that, Jim, can you give me an example of that? Like, can you translate asset recycling into David terms, right? Like, what are we talking about here? What would that practically look like necessarily?
Well, in a way, Rebecca just confirmed one of my fears of how that announcement came out today. Mr. Carney did mention asset recycling. And in other countries, that is just a buzzword for privatizing public infrastructure. And I think that is where Rebecca was headed.
Yeah.
And in most cases,
it's just asset flipping. It's like, well, we have these assets. They're kind of they're near the maturity date. They're old. We can sell them to some private individual, and then, yeah. I mean, I don't know why he thinks it's a problem, or if it's his worst fear. It's his biggest nightmare. But that's what happens.
That isn't necessary. We could be investing in these growing industries, high-tech industries, diversifying our economy without selling off the stuff that we have today. And for building public wealth over time.
The thing is that you then put yourself in more debt. But the thing is, Carney is also investing while also doing a bunch of fucking cuts, right? So none of these people want a fucking socialist society. None of them want, because that would be the end of the profit motive, and we would be redistributing wealth downward and building out society and building out infrastructure instead of like funding wars and all this shit, and also private companies. But like, it's all shit. It's all garbage. Is the point?
Idea that
it's all
invest
bullshit.
With one hand, but give stuff away with the other, kind of defeats the purpose of building public equity over time. So frankly, I'm concerned about that idea of asset recycling. Mr. Carney's background as an investment banker might be leading him in that direction, but it sounds more like a fund for flipping assets rather than actually building the capabilities of the economy over time.
But Rebecca, does it necessarily have to be public infrastructure, or could it be something like the TMX pipeline, for example, which they initially said they were going to build it and then look for a buyer? I know it's been a while, but maybe they could do something there. I mean, what do you see going through that recycling?
I'll be looking for the details tomorrow. You know, we really only heard those words today. So,
Sure.
you know, I think, and quite frankly, the federal government doesn't own a lot of infrastructure itself. Most of that sits at subnational levels. So I think that's one component. I think we heard a lot of aspects of what
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is like a minor
so I think we need more
detail.
clarity, and hopefully we get it tomorrow.
Whoa.
Okay,
What's
great
that?
stuff.
I just built a budgeting
At
app.
the end? Is that the end or the middle? That's the middle, okay.
So Jim, tomorrow we will get some clarity on what they started signaling kind of last week, that maybe the financial picture is going to look a little bit better. Like, we're not talking surpluses and balance, but maybe the 75 becomes 65 or $55 billion on deficit. Kevin Page was on the show a few weeks back and said he expected a lower deficit because of better than expected economic performance and maybe some lapsed spending because of the late passage of the Budget Implementation Act. What are your expectations? What are you watching for tomorrow in the numbers?
Yeah, the deficit number will get a lot of attention, even though, frankly, the deficit is not our biggest problem these days. The tariff war and the war in the Middle East are our biggest problems. I think a couple of things. Number one, the Canadian economy did do better last year than we expected, despite Trump's tariffs, so that helps. Number two, Mr. Carney and Mr. Champagne have both learned the lessons of finance ministers past, which is to underpromise and overdeliver.
Yeah.
So there certainly was a lot of padding in that seemingly bad $78 billion deficit forecast for the fiscal year that just ended, and now they can claim victory and say we were the prudent fiscal managers and did better than we thought. It's the oldest trick in the finance minister's.
It's also stupid because at the end of the day, for me, as someone who's just a fucking citizen, I don't give a fuck if the government saved X amount of money. If it means that my services are shittier, my infrastructure is shittier, my public services are shittier, my community is shittier, my fucking everything around me is shittier, my services are getting cut off, my maybe some rebates are gone, whatever it is. It's just, it makes society worse. So it's stupid to be like, look how fiscally active we are. It's like, okay, great. You're not saving me any money. You're saving the government money. And everything around me is getting older and shittier. So great job.
And we'll see them milking it tomorrow.
Yeah, Rebecca, like, you know, if they get the deficit down to 60 billion, like, never in my life did I think that would be good news. But here we are. Well, I mean, what are your expectations in terms of where we might see the fiscal track going and the economic projections?
Yes, no, I think I agree. Obviously, 2025 came off better. Now I have to take some blame.
I don't really care about this fucking debt shit they're kind of talking about.